Hey guys, time for a little unboxing video, but I'll tell you up front, I've got a bad feeling about this one. I pretty much stopped buying sets on eBay some time ago, both because prices have been going kind of nuts on eBay and lots of my merchandise was getting damaged, and I had also read so many horror stories on the Antique Radio Forum and other online forums about radios in particular getting damaged. But this was a model I was interested in getting. It was reasonably priced, and I exchanged a number of messages with the seller, and he assured me he knew how to pack a radio up and it wouldn't get damaged. I had mentioned to him about I've seen speakers break loose and go crashing around inside the cabinet. I've seen chassis break loose and do a lot of damage. Well, it took him a few weeks to ship it, and I assumed in those few weeks he was doing a great job packing it, but just picked this up and brought it inside. It feels to me like this is a cardboard box with a radio inside of it and nothing else. Absolutely zero padding. In fact, I just noticed there's a hole here, and I can reach my finger inside, and I feel a whole lot of air, and there's part of a radio cabinet with nothing intervening, about that much of an air gap. Now, ideally, double boxed, secure the speaker, secure the chassis, but at least I would expect there to be a little bit of padding between the radio and the cardboard box, if nothing else. And I don't feel any of that, so I am expecting the worst when I pop this box open. I should mention that when I do these unboxing videos, it's partly for your entertainment, but it's also partly because I need to file a claim with the seller or shipper. In this case, this shipper was the post office, but I'm not going to blame them for any potential damage. Definitely was not packed well. Right now, this is supposed to be the Philco 60 MB, which is the first tombstone model that Philco made. Yeah, it's smashed. Shocking. So this was the only padding that was in there, was just some cardboard. So, the front is completely broken loose, and one side is completely broken loose. So we have at least three pieces to the cabinet now. So we've got the top on one side, we've got the front, and we've got the other side. So I told the guy, oh, and the front trim is completely gone. That's in the box somewhere. The weight of the speaker on this front board, I'm sure, was flopping around. Oh, I guess you could call this some padding, some scratched up newspaper. The weight of the speaker flopping around, no doubt, just broke this cabinet apart. There's one side of it. So as I was saying, it's a clean break. It broke right on the seam, and here's the glue blocks. So, you know, if the rest of the brakes are like this, a little bit of splitting here, but remove these nails, and it can be glued back together. So, Philco Gather calls it a Philco 60 MB, but the label inside is a Philco Model 60 and 505. So, it is a Model 60 chassis. You know, they use that for a number of sets with a number of variations. This would be a year or two earlier than the Philco 60L that I restored a couple years ago. And, I think my best bet is just cut one side of this box off. I cut one side of the box open so you can get a view of the carnage inside. And keep in mind, this is from a guy I exchanged messages with that assured me he knew how to pack this properly. Looks like all he did was shove some newspaper in the box. And I especially mentioned to him that this is what happens to radios. The chassis breaks loose, which this has, and the speaker puts weight in the front of the cabinet and breaks it off. At least we have this. This is the front piece of trim that I was concerned about. Just a slight bit of damage there, but otherwise it's in decent condition. Alright, I think I better cut the front piece off too. Okay, I popped off another side of the box. So let's see, this front. The only thing holding this in is the speaker. These wires have already been spliced and they're kind of ratty, so I think I'll just cut them. And then I can take the entire front and put it aside. This is common with Philcos of this era. The speakers are just hardwired to the chassis, so when servicemen would work on these, they would often just cut these wires, splice them back together, and wrap some electrical tape around it. So, yeah. Here's the front of the radio. So assuming I can steam that out, that's kind of a bit of a depression there in the finish. This actually is not in bad condition. I mean, other than the cabinet busting apart, this is what it looked like in the photos that the seller had posted. It's a bit of a drag is the grill cloth. Of course, no reproductions are available. Plus, from my understanding, this grill cloth pattern was only used on this radio. So no reproduction was ever made. And there's a bit too much lost. If I want to be really nuts about this, I suppose I could probably take some grill cloth from other radios I've got that are all tattered, that are a similar color, and I could maybe make a little patch or unravel a few threads or something and kind of try to weave it in there so it isn't so noticeable. I think I read that originally this was green and gold, but now it's so faded it looks more like dark brown and gold, maybe. So, I guess I'll throw in a picture of what this radio looks like in better condition so you guys have a better frame of reference of what this is supposed to look like. This is one of the things I like about this radio too, is this dial opening is pretty unique. In fact, the whole cabinet design is rather unique. It's kind of more of like a European deco design, an American deco design. Or at least it's definitely very distinct in the Philco lineup, and that's exactly why I wanted it. Alright, so aside from this coming apart, it's curious about the construction, which may have been in my favor, is all these little nails that, well, I wonder if it's possible that the cabinet had already come apart, and these are modern-ish nails, or I don't know, because I've repaired a few Philco cabinets. I've never seen little brad nails in them like this before. They're all around the perimeter, because it seems almost like there's no splitting, like this radio is held together entirely by little brads, and they just cleanly separated apart, and there's essentially no cabinet damage. It's just in a bunch of pieces now, and I can just put it right back together. Oh, and as for the speaker, from what I can see of the backside, no tears whatsoever. And it seems to move alright, no scraping. And here's a better look inside. Now, I'm going to keep this regardless. I mean, I think I paid $30 for it, plus whatever for shipping. I'll give the seller a piece of my mind, but it's not worth it for me to try to file a claim, get my money back, and return this to him, whatever. And from what I can see, I can put this back together. So like the dial is busted. It may have been damaged before, I don't know. But I think that's pretty common for these to get warped anyways. In my Philco 60L, it's pretty badly warped too. I imagine reproductions are available. But I can see on like later dials, which are held in by clips, these are actually like pop riveted into place, so that could be a bit of a challenge. And I can see there's my LED light. I can see there's a bolt line here. I imagine at some point this was going through the base here to hold the chassis, although the head I can see fits right through the hole. Should have been a washer on it though. So let's see, is there, at best there's one bolt holding this in place. Might not be any. It's exactly what I wore in that seller box. I can see that, you know, we've got all the chassis holes exposed here. And at least 3 of the corners. As for the rest of it, it's grungy. I kind of knew that from the photos. Original caps are gone, which is a bummer, but they pretty much always are. The original would have been Mershon caps, probably copper, which would have been really sweet to have, but those just didn't hold up very long, so they're always replaced. Here's a look at the top. It's in decent condition. You know. No big dings or gouges or anything. This is what I was really concerned about, is like this. You know, like if this trim was damaged or gone or something, that'd be a pain, but this is no big deal. I'll just refinish the thing. And let's see about the other side. Alright, so I'll break down the rest of the box and extricate this, and let's take a better look at what I've got. It turns out that no, there was not a single bolt or anything holding this chassis down. All I had to do was cut loose that antenna wire and the whole thing just came right out. So, here's the cabinet. So, in addition to the other unique styling, it's got kind of a nifty base. Instead of feet, it's got this interesting molding, and then the sides curve out here. Go up around so I can probably see the other side. Alright, that's in decent shape too. Alright, so this is very restorable, so I guess I dodged a bullet, but regardless, I'm done with eBay. I mean, the last picture tube I bought arrived shattered, the last TV I bought arrived with a busted picture tube, and this is the latest radio I bought. So, in other words, the last 3 major items I purchased, all destroyed in shipping, or at least severely damaged. So that's it, I'm done. Which is just as well, because I pretty well finished off my bucket list for the time being, other than some really exotic stuff. Especially if my buddy comes through in a few weeks from the East Coast with really the last really desirable Philco set I'm interested in getting, other than something like a Philco boomerang, but I'm not going to just pay the kind of money that those are going for these days. Alright, so one last thing I'll take a look at is what's underneath this chassis. I'm sure some of you guys are chuckling when you hear me say that I'm done buying sets, but keep in mind, on the TV front, I just picked up 9 TVs, and trust me that I've got an example of most of the desirable sets out there. I mean, the latest round with the RCA 621 and 721, and I got the 630. I mean, other than like really exotic stuff or giant projection sets, there's really nothing I'm looking for. And on the radio front, I really just like Philcos. You may have noticed I don't have any Zenith consoles in my collection. And I decided that early on. I mean, I've seen guys who have hundreds of radios in their collections, and I just don't want to do that, even if I had the room. I mean, if you're just a collector, it's one thing, but if you're going to restore them, I'm not going to live long enough if I started going crazy and buying more and more stuff. I've already got enough to last me many, many years. Because I've been holding out on you guys, at least on YouTube. There are a couple major console radios I've got that I have not done a video on yet. I've posted pictures here and there online, so I know some of you know what I'm referring to, but those of you who only have seen my stuff on YouTube, either wait or take a look on my Flickr page and see what I've posted photos of. So let's say last year, I think. Alright, so back to this. Well, here's another positive underneath. From my very, very in-depth experience of restoring my Philco 60L, I've still got a very fresh memory of what the chassis looks like underneath, and this looks to be 100% original. Here's that can. It's 4 caps in there as memory serves. There's tone control, a couple caps buried in there. Got several Bakelite blocks, a few dog bones. This one in particular was, I think, replaced in my other set because it's a higher wattage one. And these have the notorious 2 coils in here that are so often broken. The primaries in particular. That'd be the oscillator coil and the antenna coil. Yeah, I can show you why, because I just happened to have parted out a Philco 76 chassis this afternoon with similar type of coils. There's the culprit. Between the secondary and the primary, they use this early type of plastic, and often over time that plastic starts to curl and disintegrate, and it breaks that fine wire on the primary. Or perhaps that's a secondary, I'm not entirely sure, but regardless, that plastic deteriorating and swelling and splitting breaks the wire. And finally, here it is all laid out on my living room floor. While taking it out of the box, I did find remains of the dial, so this probably was damaged in shipping after all. Here's that twin lead I found inside. It was definitely a modern addition for an internal antenna. I took that out, cut off the miserable old power cord. So of course it'll be a while before I get around to restoring the radio, but I think I have to at least reassemble the cabinet sooner than later, because this is just very inconvenient to store anywhere in this current state. So I'll be looking for an upcoming video on how I'm going to glue and clamp this back together. Oh, one other thing, when I did a little research online to find a photo of this set, I found out that the model name, or model number rather, the 60MB, the M in that model stands for Modern, which was an experimental cabinet line from around 35, 36. I guess there are a couple other variations in this family of sets. Only thing that's a little bit disappointing is the veneer on this front. The one I found online was kind of like book matched mahogany with the more interesting grain. This is mahogany, I do believe, but it's just pretty much straight quarter cut mahogany with grain running vertically. Even so, I think it'll look quite nice when refinished. I just did a quick dry fitting of the pieces to see how easily they would go back together, and I'm happy to say that the side just fit right back together. There's no glue or anything holding this. Just pushed it back into place. Likewise, this bit of molding on the front will fit right back on, and I think it'll be a little bit more work to get the front back onto the cabinet, because you can see that some wood has split out here. You know, speculating about these brads, about whether or not they were original. They had to have been. I mean, there's just so many all over the place. But like I said, I've never seen these in a Philco radio before. They got me thinking that this modern line of cabinets may have been done by a different cabinet maker or something, and maybe that's why they had all these little brads holding it together rather than a bunch of glue blocks. I don't know. I think though when I put it back together, it'd probably be easier if I just took them all out and just use glue and pressure to put it back together. Otherwise I have to kind of straighten these out and try to get the little holes to line up, the nails to line up in the holes, which might be a bit of a hassle. Alright, so that's going to be it for now. Hope you enjoyed this look Had a Philco 60MB from 1934.